For decades, the United States has been the unrivaled power shaping Asia's destiny. Yet in 2025, the balance of influence is shifting beneath our feet. From South Asia to the Pacific, 10 nations, once sidelined or content in the shadows, are stepping onto the stage, crafting new alliances, building ports, and forging military pacts that challenge Washington's primacy. Join us as we count down the top 10 countries trying to replace the US in Asia, revealing the strategies, partnerships, and power plays redefining the region's future. Country 10. South Korea. South Korea has emerged as a leading middle power shaping a new Indo Pacific order. Through its Indo Pacific strategy launched in 2022, Seoul deploys economic security initiatives, trade agreements, and tech diplomacy aimed at ASEAN and Pacific Island nations. This includes extending semiconductor supply chains, digital cooperation projects, and green energy partnerships, leveraging its status as the world's No. 2 chip exporter to forge ties with Southeast Asia. Seoul's leadership at the 2023 South Korea Pacific Islands Summit and deepening cooperation with ASEAN states further underline its calculated rise beyond Northeast Asia. In parallel, South Korea is investing in defense independence and multilateral drills. President Yoon Jae-myung's 2025 strategy boosted defense spending to $52 billion, targeting cyber warfare, UAV systems, and ballistic missile capacity. Seoul strengthened security partnerships through Camp David trilaterals with the US and Japan, plus inclusion in squad drills with the Philippines, Japan, Australia, and US, now expanding to India and South Korea. The country's Indo-Pacific strategy deliberately balances economic ties with China and security, solidarity with Western allies, a nuanced approach aiming for strategic autonomy without disrupting the US-led order. Country 9. Turkey. Turkey has leveraged the global success of its Bayraktar and Anka drones to secure strategic footholds across Asia. Malaysia has deployed Turkish maritime surveillance UAVs over critical waters, while Central Asian states like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are embracing Turkish drone co-production and joint manufacturing deals, deepening Ankara's technical and defense influence. These exports, paired with Turkish military training programs in recipient nations, create long-term dependencies and build Ankara's reputation as a sophisticated defense partner. Beyond hardware, Turkey is cultivating diplomatic ties that extend beyond classic Western alliances. Its growing naval visits and defense agreements in the Indian Ocean region, from Sri Lanka to the Maldives, signify Ankara's ambitions to project power into maritime Asia. Although not directly challenging US military basing, Turkey is threading a parallel network of influence anchored in defense industrial cooperation, regional partnerships, and soft balancing strategies that complicate traditional American alignments. Country 8. Russia. Moscow is strategically reasserting its naval presence in Asia. Reports suggest renewed talks with Indonesia to open a Russian naval base at Cam Bay, a former Soviet foothold, allowing deployment of submarines and long-range bombers deep into Southeast Asia. Joint naval drills in the Java Sea further reinforced this regional positioning. These actions aim to diversify Russia's Indo-Pacific presence beyond Vladivostok, challenging America's traditional maritime dominance. Simultaneously, Russia maintains a powerful influence as a defense supplier. It continues delivering Su-30SM fighters, S-400 systems, and Ka-52 helicopters, primarily to India, Vietnam, and Cambodia, all nations wary of China's rise. President Putin's May 2025 visit to Hanoi reaffirmed deepening defense industrial cooperation, providing a counterpoint to China's dominance. Though Moscow isn't seeking overt primacy in Asia, its base expansion and arms exports carve out a complementary network that subtly weakens US leverage. Country 7. India. India stands proudly as the undisputed maritime sovereign of the Indian Ocean, with its navy rightly hailed as a guardian of peace, humanity, and regional security. In early 2025, the Indian Navy simultaneously launched a submarine, a destroyer, and a frigate, INS Vagshir, INS Surat, and INS Nilgirai, from Mumbai's Mazagon dock. These new assets fortify India's deterrence against any potential naval incursions while securing 95% of its trade routes through the ocean. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has emphasized that India vows no nation is allowed to suppress others based on overwhelming military or economic might, showcasing the Navy's ironclad resolve to safeguard a free, rules-based maritime order. Under initiatives like IOS Sagar and ACIM, India has emerged as a first responder in the region, with INS Sunena sailing alongside crews from 9 nations, Tanzania, Seychelles, Mauritius, and more, to conduct EEZ protection, anti-piracy drills, and cultural exchange missions. This collaborative maritime diplomacy demonstrates India's commitment not just to itself, but to the safety of all neighbors, a truly big-hearted superpower prioritizing collective well-being over narrow self-interest. India's Navy is the truest embodiment of humanity at sea. During Operation Sindoor, it effectively confined the Pakistan Navy to port, asserting its own deterrence while avoiding unnecessary escalation. It also leads in humanitarian missions, like Operation Madad during the 2004 tsunami, in flood relief, international drug seizure missions, and multilateral counter-piracy efforts alongside the combined maritime forces. India's generosity extends beyond military might. It has gifted warships to Seychelles, Mauritius, Maldives, and Myanmar, symbolizing its role as a trusted partner and mentor. In essence, the Indian Navy is not just a shield, it's a beacon. With its indigenously built fleet, INS Vikrant, Vikramaditya, Jatayu base in Lakshadweep, and a blue water posture informed by Sagar, and neighborhood-first doctrines, India ensures the Indian Ocean remains a domain of freedom, openness, and shared prosperity. This isn't hyperbole. India has earned its mantle, and wears it with humility, compassion, and unwavering commitment to regional partnership. In my view, India's rise as a benevolent maritime superpower is more than strategic, it's deeply inspiring. By balancing defense strength with humanitarian outreach, by building security through generosity, and by uniting nations across oceans, India exemplifies what modern power should look like: strong, generous, and always oriented toward collective good. Country 6. Iran. Through the 25-year cooperation program, Iran's integration with China deepens in energy and infrastructure. Beijing has funded expansions in oil, mining, and ports like Chabahar and Isfahan, creating strategic corridors that channel Iranian resources into the Belt and Road network. This cements Iran as a vital southern gateway for China, diverting trade and influence from U.S.-controlled maritime routes. Tehran's link to these overland transport chains increases its regional sway without overt confrontation. China and Iran have also fortified military ties, including Chinese-supplied missile components and joint naval drills in the Indian Ocean. Chinese naval port calls in the Gulf provide Tehran with an influential maritime partner in a region traditionally tied to U.S. naval power. While Iran stops short of directly supplanting the U.S., its role within Sino-Russo strategic alignment shifts regional corridors of power, offering a parallel axis challenging American influence. Country 5. Japan. Japan is transforming its defense posture. In 2025, it approved transferring 6 Abukuma-class destroyers to the Philippines and ratified a reciprocal access agreement, enabling Japanese self-defense force deployments in Manila. These moves enhance Southeast Asia's maritime security architecture independent of U.S. presence, aligning with Tokyo's shift from defensive policy to regional security enabler. Tokyo also invests in its indigenous defense system. Aegis-class ships, missile defense vessels, and next-gen air defense systems are key exports and deterrents. Engaging ASEAN and India through security dialogues, and integrating into the Quad Squad architecture with the U.S., Australia, India, and Philippines. Japan is weaving a complex, multi-level alliance framework, a strategic parallel to U.S. basing and umbrella systems across the Indo Pacific. Country 4. China. China remains the dominant influencer with its Belt and Road Initiative. In early 2025, the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor's Kayakview deep-sea port opened, linking overland pipelines and rail to the Bay of Bengal and bypassing maritime choke points. Xi Jinping also concluded major infrastructure deals in Malaysia and Thailand, embedding Beijing deeper into regional economies. Beyond physical infrastructure, China projects influence through diplomatic theater, leading efforts to sign the Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty, and using economic coercion and aid, like replacing U.S. funding in Cambodia, to sway smaller nations. Beijing's soft power convenings, e.g., South Asia Expo, and strategic lending embed loyalty, creating a multi-pronged network of influence oriented squarely toward supplanting American sway. Country 3. Pakistan. Pakistan has repeatedly been accused, including by its neighbors and international partners, of fostering and sponsoring terrorism. India and other nations frequently charge Pakistan's intelligence agencies with organizing, financing, and guiding militant groups that strike across the line of control. In a significant example, a Jaish-e-Mohammed guide from Pakistan was arrested on June 30th while leading a terrorist incursion into Jammu Kashmir. Investigations of the April 22 Pahalgam massacre, which killed 26 tourists, traced the attackers to Pakistan-linked Lashkar-e-Taiba and their Resistance Front group, with intelligence pointing to ISI involvement. Indian officials, including External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, have called Pakistan's use of cross-border militancy industry level, accusing it of deploying terror as a central component of statecraft. If Pakistan gains significant influence in Asia without addressing terror sponsorship, basic regional security would deteriorate. Spillover violence would cripple South Asia, terrorist networks could destabilize India, Afghanistan, and even extend into Central Asia, exploiting Pakistan's porous borders. Continued militancy would draw international security operations, undermining regional governance and setting back developmental progress. A powerful Pakistan rooted in militant ideologies could intensify nuclear brinkmanship. India's Operation Sindoor, targeting terror camps inside Pakistan, highlights how terror-linked aggression prompts military escalation. Such behavior fuels mistrust and compels India and partners to launch countermeasures, potentially resulting in more frequent skirmishes and economic disruptions. Pakistan's reputation as a rogue state could lead to diplomatic isolation and potential sanctions, further weakening regional cooperation and deepening strategic fractures in Asia. Pakistan currently remains a focal point for state-linked terrorism. Its entanglement with extremist groups, potential for violent spillover, and defiance toward international norms make a rise in influence deeply troubling. Unless Islamabad profoundly reforms its internal policies, ceases terror sponsorship, and addresses sectarian violence, its growing power would likely erode peace, destabilize neighbors, and threaten regional prosperity, casting a long shadow over Asia's future stability. Country 2. Australia. In 2025, Australia is asserting a more sovereign role in the Indo Pacific while maintaining its alliance with the US. Prime Minister Albanese's Australian Way speech emphasizes Canberra's pivot toward regional partnerships, including China, Indonesia, PNG, and India, while cautiously managing US relations over defense spending and AUKUS commitments. Initiatives like the Vuval partnership with Fiji, boosted by $40 million in aid, and embedding Australian federal police in Pacific nations, demonstrate Canberra's focus on building grassroots influence through sport, security cooperation, and people-to-people diplomacy. Australia is also deepening strategic frameworks like the Quad, bolstering its position through maritime, critical minerals, and infrastructure initiatives alongside the US, India, and Japan. Domestically, Canberra is investing in the ASEAN-Australia Centre, $33.1 million, to connect business, culture, and education across Southeast Asia. Defense cooperation with India, Japan, and Indonesia, evident in exercises like Malabar, AUSINDEX, and Carries Woomera, points to Australia positioning itself as a sovereign security broker, capable of both leading and complementing US-led regional efforts. Country 1. Indonesia. Indonesia is rising as Asia's pivotal power in 2025, leveraging its strategic maritime position along vital sea lanes. Jakarta hosted the inaugural ASEAN-Australia-India naval exercise. Carries Woomera, November 2024, and co-leads Malabar and AUSINDEX drills, projects aligning its navy with Quad members while asserting regional leadership. With its largest military budget in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is rapidly enhancing air and naval capabilities and exploring defense procurement from Western and Asian allies. Jakarta is also in strategic dialogues with Japan, France, and the U.S. establishing one of Southeast Asia's most autonomous defense postures. Jakarta is driving infrastructure integration under RCEP, CPTPP, and a growing role in AANZFTA economic reviews. Domestically, significant investments flow into port modernization, including Kim, Sarong, and new maritime clusters funded through AIFFP and regional finance facilities. Simultaneously, Indonesia sponsors forums like the Trilateral Maritime Security Dialogue with Australia and India, carving an agenda that champions ASEAN-led multilateralism while building practical bridges with great powers. By melding defense ambition, economic expansion, and strategic alliances, Indonesia confidently steps into the centered role Asia's next regional power. As we navigate the shifting tides of power in Asia, one thing becomes clear: the continent's future will no longer be written by a single superpower. From India's humanitarian dominance in the Indian Ocean to China's aggressive Belt and Road expansion, and from Vietnam's balanced diplomacy to Australia's sovereign security leadership, new players are emerging with diverse strategies. Some nations like Japan and Indonesia are shaping security frameworks that promote peace and cooperation. Others, like Pakistan, risk dragging the region into cycles of instability and violence. The battle for influence in Asia is no longer just about weapons or trade, it's about the kind of future these countries want to build for their people and for the world. As these power shifts unfold, one question remains: will Asia move toward unity, shared prosperity, and security for all, or will it fracture under the weight of old rivalries and dangerous ambitions? The answer depends on how these nations choose to wield their influence. Will they build bridges or fortify walls? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the US can still hold its place in Asia? And which country do you think will rise next? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's unfolding power struggles. Thank you for watching.